Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to share a tutorial for this simple memory folio that you can make yourself. So to start with, you're going to want to cut some cardstock in a color of your choice. You're going to need to cut it 10 by 5 inches, and then you fold them all in half so that it's there 5 by 7 inches, and you're going to want 4 of those. You can use more if you want it a bit chunkier, but 4 makes a nice size album. So then what you're going to do is you're going to stick these together into a booklet. So take 2 of them with the closed sides together so that the open sections are facing out. And then you want to glue 3 sides down. So I'm using craft glue here, but you can use double-sided tape or whatever adhesive you like, but make sure that it's nice and strong. So glue 3 sides there, leaving the top section open, and then you're going to want to stick down 2 of these together. So make sure again that those closed sides are together and the open sides are together on the other side. So once that's done, you can do that to all of the pages, and you will end up with a little booklet that has 3 top loading pockets like you can see here. So just repeat that step to glue them down on the 3 edges, and you should end up with a little booklet just like this. So next you want to grab some designer papers and cut them to size to fit your booklet. So I've cut mine at 6.5 by 4.5 inches so that you get a nice little 1/4 of an inch border around the edge. So depending on how many pages you've made would depend on how many papers you need. For this one, if you followed these instructions, then you'll need 10. And just make sure that they all coordinate and whatnot. Before we stick them down, we're going to grab some cutter parts. You can use die cuts for this. These are the little cutter parts from the paper collection in the kit, and you stick some white cardstock or whatever color you're using down to the length of the cutter part with some excess on the side that you then score and fold over so that you get a little flap. And you can use whatever shape and size. I've got 4 different ones here I'll be using, and just make sure you have that nice little flap there. So what we're going to do with these is we're going to attach them to our designer papers before we stick them down to the cardstock page. So if you pick 2 that you think go well together, because you obviously want to coordinate things for your pages, and then you're going to stick the back inside of the flap to the back of the paper. So you can see here I'm just using double-sided tape, and you just want to stick that flap down onto the back of the paper so that when you fold it over, you get this little flap that's kind of like a little mini page between the main pages. So that's what that should look like there, and you can do that to as many or as little pages as you want. And then stick down the main pages just straight onto those cardstock pages, and you'll get your book looking something like this. Now, I don't like the back of that white cardstock showing there on the flaps, so I'm just going to take some washi tape and stick it over the back there. I purposefully sort of made my flap as wide as the washi, so I think it was about 1/2 inch, so that I could cover it with this gorgeous washi tape from the Explore 2018 box. So if you do that to all of them, then that will cover up that space. Next, I've taken 2 extra cutter parts to create some extra pockets. So for this one, I have just put some double-sided tape on 2 of the edges, and then the other one I've got it on 3 edges, and I'm just deciding which papers that I want to put those on. So for the one with the 2 edges, if you just glue 2 sides down and attach it into the corner, you will end up with a little pocket that's kind of like just a little open flap that you can tuck in anything you want. So you can tuck a photo in, or a journaling card or some ephemera. I'm just going to stick in some of these smaller cutter parts from the collection, and then I can use them later when I actually use this folio for memory keeping. So, you know, I could put that at the top there and then do some journaling or something. It's just a nice spot to be able to tuck things into. The other one works much the same, but it's a longer piece that I cut to the 6.5 inches to fit along the bottom of the page, and it has 3 sides glued down. So if you go ahead, I'm just using double-sided tape again, and stick down those 3 sides, you'll end up with a little top-loading pocket. You can't fit a lot into these obviously, but you can just tuck in some little keepsakes or some little tags. So for this one, I just grab 2 of the cutter parts that were actually little tags that I've put the little hole punch in the top of, and they just slot in nicely there. So if you do that, you should end up with this nice little folio, and then all your pages are assembled, but the next thing you're going to want to do is create something to go inside those pockets. So I've just created these tabs to go in there. So you'll need 3 pieces of your cardstock, and then you'll need 3 pieces of paper cut slightly smaller to fit around with that 1/4 inch border, and 3 1-inch circles. I haven't given you exact dimensions here because it much depends on what the interior dimensions of your pocket end up like, depending on what thickness adhesive you've used. But mine ended up, I think, being about 4 inches wide for the white parts by about 5 inches tall, and then you have that 1/2 inch smaller than that, so it must have been about 3.5 by 4.5 or something for the others. So if you just stick down your 1-inch circle at the top there, like I have, with half of it sort of sticking out from the top, that will act as a pull tab for these inserts for those pockets. And then if you take your designer patterned paper and glue it down or stick it down with your adhesive of choice on top, like I'm doing here, taking my time sticking that double-sided tape on there. But if you glue that down, then you'll end up with this really lovely little insert for your pockets. So I decided to leave the back side of mine blank, and that's just white, so that I can choose to journal on there if I wish later. But it's up to you whether you want to do both sides or not. You could use another piece of the pattern paper on the back there, but it's completely up to you. And so if you go ahead and do that for 3 of these, you'll end up with 3 nice little tabs for your pocket. You can put the little circle tabs at the top right in the middle. I've staggered them so that when they go in like this, you end up with them all sort of showing at the top at different angles. So that right there is the basis of your book, and all that's left is to put the finishing touches on. So I'm just going to do a quick little flip through here, and you can see all the little pockets and the tabs and the way they work. And the next thing to do is to create a closure. So for the closure that I've made, you're going to want some twine or ribbon would work, and you're going to want it 3 times the size of across your page, and then you're going to want to double that. So for this, for example, it would be 15 inches, and then you double that, so you're going to need about 30 inches. And I've just hung 2 of the Ken Oliver charms off the bottom and then tied a knot in the other end there. And so what you want to do is just simply stick that to your spine. Again, you can use whatever adhesive you want, but you want something nice and strong because you'll probably pull on this a little bit as it is a closure. So I'm just using some wet craft glue. Can get a little bit messy, but at least I know that it's going to hold, because craft glue tends to work well for things like this where you're sticking twine to paper. So go ahead and stick that down. You want to make sure that it's roughly in the middle of your album, and then just adhere that to the spine like so. Now, I don't like being able to see that there, so to cover up the spine, you can just simply use some cardstock. I've cut my cardstock to the length, so it's going to be 7 inches long, and I cut it to about 2 to 2.5 inches wide. It's just enough so that it wraps around the spine and then gives a little bit excess. I'm not going to give you exact measurements because it's up to personal taste whether you want just a little bit showing or a lot. And then you just stick that down however you want. Again, probably something nice and strong. I use score tape, and if you stick that there, you get a nice clean finished edge with your twine closure and the gems, the charm, sorry, hanging off. To finish this off, all you're going to do is decorate your front cover. You can do whatever you want. I just chose this Hello cut apart that was, again, part of the Stargazer collection. And then I'm using this Tim Holtz stencil with the Dinah Wakley acrylic paint to stencil the word adventure there, because I think Hello Adventure is a nice little title for this project. If you do use the stencil, make sure you don't use too much paint at once or it will just splatter around everywhere, as I've discovered using different stencils over the years. So just make sure you use just a little bit at a time. And if it does get a little bit messy, you can do what I do, which is just go over some of those letters. I just created some shadows here with this white Uniball pen just to highlight the word adventure. So that is this project done. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have any questions, let me know, and if you end up making one yourself, then please share photos so I can see. Thanks!